Hello, this is Crystal Racing with the report for the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix, the season opening race of the new Formula 1 season, and as you can tell, it's come about 5 days late because, without Kimi Räikkönen, I'm not really bothered anymore, but let's get on with the review. Charles Leclerc, 10 out of 10, a superb performance, and withstood the pressure from Max Verstappen, who was giving Leclerc a lot of headaches in the first 20 laps, but of course Verstappen locked up a couple of times, and Ferrari have started the season off in fine form. I mean, funnily enough, last summer the Italian football team were in absolute top gear. Ferrari was struggling in the midfield, and what was their only chance to win a race last year. Leclerc bottled the race lead in the last 3 laps, and Lewis Hamilton won the race. Well, unfortunately for Italy, whilst Ferrari are back on top, the Italian football team has failed to qualify for this year's World Cup, so funny how things change. Carlos Sainz gets 8 out of 10. Looked like he was going to finish 3rd until, of course, Max had his problems. But, it was a solid race for Carlos Sainz. But I have to say, it does kind of display his strengths and weaknesses. Charles Leclerc is excellent in a front-running car with all the speed in the world. Carlos Sainz is a lot better off in a car that's struggling, that needs a particular driving style to manage it. But, of course, with the Ferrari being super fast now, his strengths are not really being exploited anymore. 3rd place, Lewis Hamilton, 8 out of 10. Mercedes have turned up in Bahrain with a car that's a complete truck. Almost looking like a midfield team. You could almost call them Mid-Sadies, but, Mercedes always have one thing they can always rely on, and that is reliability. Yeah, their engine's bulletproof, their car's bulletproof, and of course it's 3rd and 4th place for the Mercedes team, and of course for the returning George Russell, of course it's 7 out of 10. Didn't really do anything impressive, to be honest. In fact, if anything, he didn't even, if you didn't realise it was George Russell, you'd almost be inclined to believe that Valtteri Bottas is still at the team, because let's face it, Hamilton had Russell's number all weekend long. And, there's not much else to say, because I actually don't remember much of what George Russell did apart from mess up his final qualifying lap, and that's all she wrote. Kevin Magnussen is my driver of the day, 5th place, just 2 days of testing about a few weeks ago. I mean, everyone thought his F1 career was dead and buried, so when the news broke out that he had replaced the Russian egghead, I was absolutely delighted, and my goodness me, he has not disappointed, not one bit. Got the car, it qualified it P7, let's face it, if Mazepin was in that car, he would have been knocked out in Q1. The kid's absolutely useless, and in my estimation, he was lapping up to about 2 seconds slope off the race pace last year. But with Kevin Magnussen back in the team, cars are a serious team again. They're a team that everyone takes seriously, and you really should take them seriously, because when Kevin Magnussen's back in F1, everything's good again. F1 is semi-watchable again. 6th place, of course, new Alfa Romeo driver Valtteri Bottas. It's 9 out of 10. A superb performance all weekend long. Qualified 6th. Finished 6th. Yes, I know the race start was very poor. He's not quite got his poor race starts out of his system yet, but he did make his way back through the field, though, and it has to be said, that was the only thing he did wrong, the race start. 7th place, Esteban Ocon, 8.5 out of 10. Very solid performance. Beat Alonso. Has started the season off very strongly. He can keep his head held up high. 8th place, Yuki Tsunoda, 8 out of 10. If I'm going to be honest, Gasly had a panel all weekend long, but of course after Gasly's engine failure, Tsunoda stepped up to the plate and delivered a strong result, finally showing a bit of consistency, because of course last season he was always shouting and screaming over the radio, one weekend he'd be quick, the next weekend he'd be off the pace. And yes, I know his qualifying this weekend was very poor, but, on race day he got the job done. So I'm going to lay off him. 9th place, Fernando Alonso, 7 out of 10. A very average start for El Plan, and of course apparently it turned out to be on Twitter, Fernando Alonso's been having El Chicharito blocked all this time, so that's a case of 1-0 to El Chicharito over El Plan. But joking aside, it was an okay performance by Fernando Alonso, looking pretty in pink, but let's face it, Ocon looks even prettier than he does right now. And of course, I never thought I'd be saying this because I never thought he'd be scoring a point in his Grand Prix debut, but Guan Zhou, the first driver to be representing mainland China in Formula 1, 8 out of 10. Of course, there have been 2 previous drivers who have had some Chinese heritage in them, Alex Young of Malaysia and Rio Haryanto of Indonesia, but of course neither of them scored a point, so yeah, definitively, Guan Zhou is the first Chinese driver to ever score a point in Formula 1. Congratulations. I thought he was going to be terrible, really, if I'm going to be honest. But, yes, I know he's had a bit of luck thanks to the 2 Red Bulls and Pierre Gasly breaking down. But, he started his career with a point on the board. He's managed to beat Mick Schumacher in scoring a point in his F1 career. That's quite something, considering that, Mick Schumacher really, who finished 11th, only gets 5 out of 10 for me. Half a second off Magnussen in qualifying. 30 seconds behind Magnussen by about after 30 laps in a race. Yes, I know we had contact with Ocon at the start of the race. I think there might be a slight bit of damage to the horse, but Mick Schumacher, what a mediocre weekend, I've got to say, and I have to say, oh, dearie me. And, for me, he's a contender for reject of the day, but, I've given that award to a certain team, not a driver. 12th place, Lance Stroll, 6 out of 10. Aston Martin have designed a dog of a car. They are literally the modern day Jaguar team, On their day, when they're quick, they can float their way to a podium, but most of the time, this is where they belong. Miles off the pace and struggling to even scrape a point. Lance Stroll and Hulkenberg got knocked out Q1 because, that car has got far too much on the steer. It's an absolute tractor of a car. 13th place, Alex Albon, 8 out of 10, returning to F1 for Williams, and this weekend he comfortably outpaced and outraced Latifi, who frankly is, the words F-R-A-U-D come to mind with that guy. 14th place is Daniel Ricciardo. Okay, I'm taking that joke a bit too far. It's 5.5 out of 10, but looking even more mid than Ricciardo was his team. McLaren Mercedes, yeah. And of course, his team, McLaren, will get the Reject of the Day award because in testing they looked pretty good, but in the race they decided to start the race on mediums and their car had no pace at all. 0 pace, never looked competitive. Both drivers had no confidence in the car all weekend long. What a disastrous weekend, if I'm going to say, Norris 13th, Ricciardo 18th in qualifying. Really, absolutely all the past 3 years have gone down the drain. And what's even worse about McLaren's failure is the fact they can't even blame Honda anymore. You can't even blame them. It's all your fault. And sack Hash Brown, their overweight team boss, needs to look himself in the mirror, because other than the fact he desperately needs to go on a weight loss diet, the whole team has lost direction. Andrea Seidel is not quite the miracle signing that everyone at the team thought he would be, and it's back to square one again. Nicholas Latifi finishing 60, 4 out of 10. Who cares really? I'm going to move on. 17th place and standing in for an ill Sebastian Vettel who cannot race this weekend. Nico Hulkenberg, 5 out of 10. Out-qualified Lance Stroll. Out-qualified him, of course. With his lack of race fitness, he fell behind and finished last on the road. But then, of course, I mean, before we know, Sebastian Vettel will probably fake another sick test on his pandemic chart. I would not be surprised if Sebastian Vettel just decides to retire from F1. Really, at this point, that Aston Martin looked like a joke. And apparently, the reports that Lawrence Stroll stormed into the team headquarters on Saturday night and screamed and shouted at everyone. Yeah, it's going to be a long season for Aston Martin and McLaren, who are going to be fighting it out with Williams this season. And funnily enough, the three worst team in F1 right now are Mercedes powered. And I think, whilst McLaren, I think, have the worst car in F1, Aston Martin have got probably the most pessimistic, gloomy environment in the whole paddock. Although, of course, technically, both teams are ranked ahead of a team who won last year's Drivers' Championship in what was the most dubious circumstances possible. Of course, how can I forget? Sergio Perez, 8 out of 10. Got to the final lap, but then his car spun at the first corner because, if you listen to the onboard, the engine cut out. The new mid-pool powertrains operations is going very badly at the moment. Although, of course, there have been reports that because of the new regulations forcing the teams to redesign the fuel pumps, it's actually caused Red Bull and AlphaTauri more problems than anyone else. And, of course, had to make the transition from, of course, Honda leaving the sport and having to rebrand their engine department, the Red Bull Powertrains department. Yes, Honda are still there preparing the power units. I mean, it's caught Red Bull and AlphaTauri out by surprise, and but if there's one positive that Red Bull and AlphaTauri have, is that their cars are relatively quick, if somewhat lacking reliability at this point. And as for Max Verstappen, it's 9 out of 10. Yes, I know he made a few lockups and got very angry on the radio, but I mean, at least, Max Verstappen is hungry. Yes, I know he can be an irritating, whining bitch, but, aren't we all just a bunch of grumpy arseholes? I mean, I'm definitely a grumpy arsehole, but, I mean, considering Ferrari are by far the fastest car in F1 at this point, I think Max did a fine job in the circumstances, so I'm not going to go too hard on him. And, of course, the only retiree of the race was, of course, Pierre Gasly, who, of course, engine cutout caused the whole field to bunch up under the safety car and allowed Bottas and Magnussen to get 5th and 6th place. It's 8 out of 10 for Gasly. So if you enjoyed this report, please like and subscribe to Crystal Racing, and I'll see you again next time.